Hello, everyone. Welcome to English Today Journey. I am really happy that you are here with me today. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe so you can get daily tips to improve your English. This podcast is not just about learning English. It is also about learning how to live a better life, how to stay calm, and how to find more meaning in everyday life. When we learn English, we are not only learning new words, we are also learning new ideas, different ways of thinking, and new ways to see the world. The language we speak affects how we think and how we understand life. So, by improving our English, we also grow our minds and become better at handling challenges in life. Today, we're going to talk about something very important. This topic affects almost everyone, no matter where you live, what language you speak, or what culture you belong to. The topic is about frustration, stress, and depression. We will look closely at what each of these really means, how they are different from each other, and how we can take control of our lives when these feelings become too heavy or difficult to manage. Why is this topic so important? Because we live in a fast-moving world. Everything around us is changing quickly. Technology changes every day. Work and school deadlines feel shorter. People expect quick answers to messages. We are asked to do more in less time. All of this makes it feel like there is no pause button in life. In this busy world, our emotions can feel very heavy. Sometimes, we get frustrated over small things. For example, when the internet is slow, or when the phone freezes right when we need it the most. These little annoyances can make our day feel stressful. Other times, we feel stressed because responsibilities build up. At school, there may be exams. At work, projects pile up. At home, family problems or chores demand attention. When too many things happen at once, it can feel like we are carrying a very heavy load. Stress starts to grow, and it can make us feel tired, overwhelmed, or even sad. If these feelings continue for a long time, they can turn into something more serious, like depression. Depression is when sadness, worry, and stress don't go away easily. It makes life feel harder, and even things we usually enjoy may feel difficult. But the good news is, there are ways to feel better and take control of your emotions. Frustration, stress, and depression are all connected, but they are not exactly the same. Frustration happens when something blocks you from reaching your goal. It can be small, like a slow internet connection, or bigger, like failing a test. Stress happens when life feels too full or too fast. It is the feeling of being under pressure and not having enough time or energy. Depression is deeper. It is when stress and sadness last for a long time and you feel like it is hard to enjoy life. In this podcast, we will explore ways to reduce frustration, manage stress, and avoid getting stuck in depression. We'll talk about practical tools that anyone can use, such as breathing exercises, planning your time better, thinking positively, and finding small moments of calm in your busy day. These tools can help you feel less overwhelmed and more in control of your life. Remember, learning English is more than memorizing words. It is also about learning how to think clearly, how to stay calm under pressure, and how to live a happier life. The ideas we explore while learning English can help us in every part of life, at school, at work, and at home. By growing our English skills, we are also growing our ability to face challenges, understand our feelings, and make our lives better. So, today we start a journey together. A journey to understand our emotions, handle frustration and stress, and bring more peace and meaning to our daily life. This journey will take time, but even small steps can make a big difference. Stay with me, and let's learn not just English, but also how to live a calmer, stronger, and happier life. Now, let's go a little deeper and talk about something heavier, something darker, depression. Depression can feel like a cloud that follows you everywhere, a cloud that won't go away, no matter what you do. It can make even small tasks feel very hard. But before we get too far, there is an important problem we need to understand. Many people confuse frustration, stress, and depression. Some people think frustration and stress are the same, or they call depression just sadness. But these three emotions are different, and if we do not understand the difference, it can be very hard to take care of ourselves. Think about it like fixing a car. If a car is broken and you don't know which part is broken, it is easy to waste a lot of time fixing the wrong thing. You might spend hours changing the tires when the real problem is the engine. Life is similar. If we mix up frustration, stress, and depression, we might try the wrong solutions. We might do things that do not help us and ignore the care we really need. That is why it is so important to see clearly what each emotion really is. Once we understand them, we can act in ways that truly help us feel better. In this episode, I want to guide you step by step. We will look at what each emotion means in real life, not just in a dictionary. Instead of giving long definitions, I will use simple examples, situations you can imagine, or maybe even situations you have already experienced. Most importantly, I want you to think about your own life as you listen. This podcast is not just me talking. It is about you connecting, thinking, and recognizing your own feelings. So let me ask you, have you ever been so frustrated that you wanted to give up? Have you ever felt stress pressing on your chest, like a very heavy weight? Have you noticed that your sadness sometimes feels deeper, something harder to escape, something heavier than just normal sadness? If you have, then you're not alone. Almost everyone feels these emotions at some point. Understanding them is the first step to taking control and feeling better. I want to be very clear about something. My goal in this episode is not to make you feel heavy or sad. The opposite is true. My goal is to make this episode supportive, encouraging, and even freeing. When we understand our emotions, we gain power over them. We are not trapped in frustration, stress, or depression. We can learn how to manage them, slow them down, and even use them to grow stronger. We will talk about real, practical ways to do this. For example, simple daily practices can help us release tension, see things more clearly, and feel calmer, even in a busy, fast-moving world. These small steps might not solve everything immediately, but they make a big difference over time. This episode is about learning to recognize your emotions, naming them correctly, and knowing what to do next. It is about giving yourself the care and understanding you need to live a calmer, happier life. By the end of this journey, my hope is that you will feel lighter, more in control, and better able to face life's challenges. Remember, life is not about avoiding stress or frustration completely. That is impossible. Life is about learning how to handle these emotions, understand them, and not let them control us. By seeing clearly what is happening inside us, we can make better choices, feel more peace, and live more fully. So, stay with me. Let's explore these emotions together. Let's find ways to free ourselves from heavy feelings and bring more calm, clarity, and confidence into our lives. You are not a prisoner of your emotions. You can be in control of them. And when you learn to control your feelings, life becomes lighter, easier, and more hopeful. Before we begin, let's do a simple exercise together. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for a moment. Now let it out slowly. Relax your shoulders. Focus on the moment. Notice how just a few seconds of calm can help you feel more present. Now let's start. First, let's talk about frustration. Frustration is the uncomfortable feeling you get when something is stopping you from reaching what you want. It happens when there is a block or obstacle in your way. Imagine this. You are trying to open a door. You have the key and you believe it should work. You try to put the key in the lock, but it doesn't fit. You twist it. You pull. You push. You try again and again. Still, nothing happens. How do you feel in that moment? You don't feel exactly angry and you don't feel exactly sad. Instead, you feel stuck, restless, and annoyed. That growing feeling of irritation, helplessness, and impatience, that is frustration. Frustration is like a signal from your emotions saying, I want this to work, but it is not working. I want to move forward, but something is blocking me. It tells you there is a problem you need to solve, but it can feel uncomfortable while you are stuck. Frustration happens in many parts of daily life. Some moments are small and others are bigger. One very common example is traffic. Imagine you are late for work or on your way to meet a friend you haven't seen in a long time. You are excited to get there, but the road is completely full of cars. The cars are moving very slowly, almost like they are frozen. You check your watch over and over. You tap your fingers on the steering wheel. You sigh loudly. Nothing outside changes, but inside, you feel a heat rising, a pressure building. That feeling of being stuck and restless, that is frustration. Another common example is technology problems. Let's be honest, we've all experienced this. Maybe you're trying to send an important email, or you are filling out an online form. Suddenly, the website stops working, your computer freezes, or the file won't upload. You try again, but it still doesn't work. You start feeling impatient, tense, and irritated. That uncomfortable feeling is frustration. Frustration is normal. Everyone feels it sometimes. It is your mind and body's way of saying that something is in the way. The problem may be big or small, but the feeling is real. The key is not to ignore it. By noticing frustration, you can learn to respond in a calm and helpful way rather than letting it control your actions. Frustration is also a signal that you care about the outcome. If you did not care about the email, the form, or being on time, you would not feel this emotion. It shows that something matters to you, and that awareness can help you figure out how to handle it. In daily life, frustration shows up in many forms: traffic, technology problems, waiting in lines, losing something important, or even miscommunication with friends or family. Each of these moments can make you feel restless, annoyed, and tense, but understanding that this is just frustration, not stress, not depression, helps you take a step back and respond better. Later, we will talk about stress and depression, which are deeper and more complex emotions. But for now, let's focus on recognizing frustration. By noticing it early, by understanding it, and by giving yourself small ways to manage it, like taking a breath, stretching, or pausing for a moment, you can keep frustration from turning into something heavier. Remember, frustration is normal, it is temporary, and it can be managed. It is your mind's way of pointing out that something is blocking your way, and by paying attention, you can make choices that reduce the pressure and move forward. Sometimes frustration comes from small, everyday problems. Imagine this. You're filling out an online form that took you half an hour to complete, and suddenly the internet stops working. The page freezes. You refresh it. You restart your computer. Still nothing works. Or maybe you are in the middle of a phone call, and the battery dies without warning. These problems might seem small in the bigger picture of life, but in the moment, they can make us feel very upset or irritated. Why does this happen? Because these interruptions stop us from doing what we were ready to do. They break our flow. That sudden stop creates a feeling of frustration. But frustration is not just about small things. It also shows up in more personal and meaningful situations. For example, imagine you study hard for a test. You spend hours preparing and feel ready. But when you get your grade back, it is much lower than you expected. Or imagine you have been practicing English conversation for months. You feel confident, but when you meet a native speaker, the words don't come out. You freeze. You forget everything you practiced. That gap between what you wanted to happen and what actually happened is where frustration grows. It is that uncomfortable feeling of being stuck, of wanting progress but facing a block. I remember a personal story that shows this clearly. Once, I was trying to cook a complicated dish from a recipe. I followed all the steps carefully. I spent a lot of time preparing the ingredients. I expected the dish to be delicious. But when I tasted it, it didn't turn out right. The texture was strange, and the flavor was bland. I felt like throwing the whole dish away. That was frustration in action. I had invested energy, time, and effort. I expected a good result, but reality did not match my expectation. Looking back, I can laugh at it now, but at that moment, it felt like a big problem. This is how frustration works. It often makes small problems feel bigger than they really are. Here is something interesting about frustration. It can push us in two very different directions. On one hand, frustration can motivate us. It can give us the energy to try harder, find another solution, or change our approach. For example, if the internet stops working while filling out a form, frustration might push you to take a short break, calm down, and then try again. If a recipe doesn't work, frustration can motivate you to adjust the ingredients next time or learn new cooking techniques. On the other hand, frustration can also hold us back. It can make us feel angry, restless, or even hopeless, especially if we don't know how to handle it. If we focus too much on the problem and not on solutions, frustration can grow bigger and affect other parts of our life. In daily life, frustration is always around us. It appears when things don't go as planned, when expectations are not met, or when our efforts don't give the results we hoped for. The key is to notice it early, understand it, and choose how to respond. We can either let it control us, or we can use it as a guide to learn, adapt, and improve. Frustration is a normal and natural emotion. Everyone experiences it. It is the mind's way of saying, something is stopping me. I need to pay attention and decide what to do next. By seeing frustration as a signal instead of a burden, we can turn it into a tool that helps us grow, solve problems, and face challenges with more patience and confidence. Frustration can push us in two very different directions. For example, a student who feels frustrated with low grades might use that feeling as motivation. They might decide to study in a new way, ask for help, or practice more consistently. In this way, frustration can be a signal that helps us improve, showing us where we need to focus our energy. But frustration can also discourage us. If the same student keeps feeling frustrated again and again, they might start to believe that no matter what they do, they cannot succeed. When frustration continues for a long time, it can lead to feelings of hopelessness. That is when frustration can slowly turn into stress, and if it lasts even longer, it may eventually contribute to depression. This is why it is so important to recognize frustration early. Frustration is normal and natural. Everyone feels it. What really matters is how we respond to it. One simple but powerful technique is naming the emotion. If you say to yourself, "I am frustrated right now," you create a little distance between you and the feeling. That distance acts like pressing a pause button before reacting. In that pause, you can make a choice. Do I want to keep pushing, or do I need to step back, breathe, and take a break? This small action can prevent frustration from turning into stress. Another important idea is that frustration is closely linked to expectations. The higher your expectations, the stronger your frustration becomes when reality does not match them. For example, if you expect the bus to arrive exactly on time, you will feel frustrated when it is 5 minutes late. But if you already expect that there might be a delay, you are more likely to stay calm. This doesn't mean we should stop expecting good things. Having goals and hopes is important, but it does mean we need to check our expectations and remind ourselves that life does not always go as planned, and that is okay. Frustration is not your enemy. It is a signal, a message from your mind and body saying, something is not working here. Pay attention. What you do with that message is up to you. You can either let it weigh you down, or you can use it to learn, adjust, and grow. Think about people who are perfectionists, who want everything to be flawless. They often feel frustrated more easily because their expectations are extremely high. The gap between what they want and what actually happens feels bigger, and that gap creates more tension. By noticing this, they can take a step back, relax their expectations slightly, and respond more calmly. The key idea is that frustration signals what we care about. It shows where we are investing our energy, attention, and effort. By paying attention to frustration, naming it, and adjusting our expectations or actions, we can use it as a guide instead of letting it control us. In short, frustration is a natural, useful emotion. It is not meant to hurt you. It is meant to show you where you need to focus. The sooner you recognize it and respond wisely, the sooner it can help you grow, instead of becoming a burden that leads to stress or depression. Some people feel frustrated very easily, especially those who are perfectionists. For them, even the smallest mistake can feel like a disaster. If a picture is not perfectly straight, if a word is not spelled correctly, or if a plan does not go exactly as imagined, they immediately feel disappointed. That kind of mindset almost guarantees frustration because life is never perfect. But here is the good news. If you can adjust your expectations, you can reduce the power of frustration. This does not mean you stop caring or trying your best. It simply means you give yourself room to be human. It means you allow yourself to make mistakes, be flexible, and accept that sometimes things will not go exactly as planned. And that is completely okay. Think for a moment. When was the last time you felt frustrated? Did you explode with anger? Did you give up completely? Or did you take a deep breath, calm yourself down, and try again? How you handle small frustrations tells a lot about how you might deal with bigger challenges in life. Remember this: frustration itself is not the enemy. It is just a message from your mind and body. It is saying, "This matters to me. I care about this, but something is in the way." Once you understand that message, you can choose how to respond. Do you push harder? Do you look for another solution? Or do you step back and wait for a better time? The choice is always yours. Now, let's move to the next emotion: stress. Stress is a word we hear almost every day. People often say things like, "I'm so stressed," or "this situation is stressing me out." But many times, the word stress is used in the wrong way. Stress is not the same as frustration, even though the two can feel similar. Here's the difference. Frustration usually comes from one specific situation. For example, your internet is slow. The bus doesn't arrive on time. Your phone battery dies when you need it most. Frustration is like a single obstacle that blocks you in the moment. You feel annoyed, restless, or irritated, but it is usually tied to one clear problem. Stress, on the other hand, is different. Stress comes from many pressures building up over time. It is not just one problem, but a feeling that life is too full, too fast, or too demanding. Stress can happen when responsibilities pile up: school, work, family, deadlines, exams, and even small things all happening at the same time. Stress makes us feel tired, overwhelmed, and under pressure. Sometimes it feels like a weight pressing on our chest, a constant tension that is hard to shake off. Unlike frustration, stress is often longer lasting, and it can affect your body, mind, and emotions if not managed. So, the key difference is this: frustration comes from one specific obstacle. Stress comes from many pressures combined, creating a sense of being overloaded. Understanding this difference is important because the ways we deal with frustration and stress are not exactly the same. If we treat stress like frustration, we might try quick fixes that do not really help. Recognizing stress early can help us take better care of ourselves and prevent it from turning into something heavier, like anxiety or depression. In short, frustration and stress are both normal emotions, but they come from different sources. Frustration is usually short-term, tied to a specific block. Stress is usually long-term, tied to multiple pressures. By noticing the difference, we can respond wisely, instead of letting these feelings control us. Stress is different from frustration. While frustration usually comes from one specific obstacle, stress is about pressure. It is not just one event. Stress happens when too many things are happening at once, and you feel like you cannot handle them all. It feels like being pulled in many directions at the same time, or carrying a heavy backpack that keeps getting heavier with every new responsibility. At first, you can manage it. You can carry the load. But as more weight is added, you begin to feel tired, overwhelmed, and exhausted. Stress can affect both your mind and your body if it lasts too long, so it's important to understand it. Stress can be short-term or long-term. Short-term stress happens when you face a temporary challenge or deadline. Imagine you have an important exam tomorrow. You stay up late, reviewing your notes again and again. Your heart beats faster. Your mind is focused because you want to do well. That is short-term stress. Surprisingly, short-term stress can sometimes be helpful. It can sharpen your mind, give you extra energy, and help you prepare and perform better. Athletes feel it before a big game. Speakers feel it before a presentation. Students feel it before a test. In small amounts, stress acts like fuel that pushes you forward. But the problem comes when stress does not go away. When it stays for too long, it becomes long-term stress, and that is where the real danger begins. Long-term stress is like carrying that heavy backpack every single day without ever putting it down. It doesn't just make you feel tired. It affects your body, mind, and emotions. You might notice constant headaches, trouble sleeping, or feeling irritated with people for no reason. You might even lose interest in things you once enjoyed. This is why it is so important to notice stress early. A little stress can motivate you, but too much stress carried for too long can drain your energy and slowly affect your health. Now, let's talk about depression. Depression is often misunderstood, but it is important to understand because it is deeper and heavier than frustration or stress. While frustration is short-term and stress is pressure from many demands, depression is a persistent feeling of sadness, emptiness, or hopelessness that can last weeks, months, or longer. Depression can make even small tasks feel impossible. It can make you feel like a cloud is following you everywhere, making it hard to see light, joy, or hope. Unlike frustration or short-term stress, depression is not always tied to one event or a specific challenge. It can appear slowly, growing over time, especially if frustration and stress are left unresolved. Understanding depression is the first step toward getting help, feeling better, and taking control. It is not a weakness, and it does not mean you have failed. It is simply a signal that your mind and body need attention, care, and support. By noticing frustration, managing stress, and recognizing the signs of depression, you can take care of yourself, respond wisely, and prevent small problems from turning into bigger ones. These three emotions are connected, but each has its own message. Learning to read those messages is key to living a calmer, healthier, and more balanced life. Many people think that depression is just sadness, but depression is much deeper than that. Sadness is a normal emotion. It comes and goes in life. You may feel sad when you fail an exam, argue with a friend, lose something important, or watch a sad movie. These feelings can hurt, but after some time, the sadness usually fades away. You recover, you smile again, and you continue with your life. Depression is very different. Depression is not just one bad day or one bad week. Depression is when sadness stays for a long time, for weeks, months, or even years. It slowly begins to affect every part of your life. It feels like carrying a heavy shadow that follows you everywhere, no matter where you go or what you do. When someone is depressed, they often lose interest in things they once enjoyed. Maybe they loved reading books, listening to music, playing sports, or spending time with friends. With depression, these activities no longer feel exciting or meaningful. Food may not taste good anymore. Music may sound empty. Even moments that should feel happy can feel flat and lifeless. Depression also affects the body, not just the mind. Some people sleep too much, while others cannot sleep at all. Some feel tired all the time, even after resting. Others feel restless and cannot relax. Appetite can change as well. A person may eat much less than usual, or eat much more in an attempt to feel comfort. These physical changes can make everyday life feel even harder. One of the most difficult parts of depression is the way it changes your thoughts. Depression often tells lies. It may make you believe that nothing will ever get better, that your efforts do not matter, or that no one truly cares. It can drain your energy and make simple tasks feel impossible. Because of these thoughts, People with depression may slowly pull away from others, avoid responsibilities, and lose hope about the future. Let's look at a few examples to understand this more clearly. Imagine a student who once loved learning. They were curious and motivated. But now, even opening a book feels exhausting. Concentrating feels impossible, and studying feels pointless. Or imagine a parent who once laughed and played with their children. Now, they feel emotionally empty and struggle to join in, even though they still care deeply. Depression does not mean a person is weak. It does not mean they are lazy or broken. It simply means their mind and body are overwhelmed and need care, patience, and support. Depression is serious, but it is also understandable, and it does not define who a person truly is. Understanding depression is an important step. When we understand it, we can show more kindness to ourselves and to others. We can stop judging and start listening. Depression is not something to ignore or feel ashamed of. It is a signal that something inside needs attention, rest, and healing. And with understanding, support, and time, life can slowly begin to feel lighter again. Imagine a worker who once took pride in their job, but now finds it hard to get out of bed in the morning. From the outside, it might look like laziness, disinterest, or weakness. But depression is none of these things. Depression is an illness, just like the flu or a broken bone. It affects both the brain and body, and it needs care, understanding, and support. Another important idea is that depression can sometimes grow from frustration or stress. Think about it. If you feel frustrated again and again, or live with stress for a long time without relief, your mind and body can begin to shut down. It is like a machine running nonstop without rest. Eventually, it will break. Depression can be the result of that long-term overload. But here is the most important message. Depression is not the end. It is treatable, and people recover from it every day. Recovery can come from professional help, like therapy or medication. It can also come from supportive friends and family, healthy routines, and taking care of yourself. Most often, recovery comes from a combination of these things. The first and most powerful step is simply recognizing it. You can pause and say to yourself, "This is not just tiredness. This is not just sadness. I may be experiencing depression." That awareness opens the door to healing. If you notice yourself or someone you care about feeling hopeless, empty, or unable to find joy for a long time, take it seriously. Talk to someone you trust. Reach out for help. You do not have to face depression alone. To put it simply, frustration is a signal. It tells you something is blocking you. Stress is pressure. It shows when life is too full and overwhelming. Depression is a weight. It can trap you if ignored, but it is treatable. Awareness is the first step in all three cases. When you can name what you feel, you can take back your power. Sadness usually has a cause and a timeline. You know why you feel sad, and after some time, the feeling passes. Depression, on the other hand, often has no single reason. It may appear slowly, build over time, and affect many parts of life. This makes it harder to see and harder to deal with alone. Understanding this helps you respond in the right way. You can pause, recognize your feelings, and seek support. You can learn to care for yourself instead of letting depression control your life. It is not a weakness, and it does not define you. With help, time, and understanding, life can gradually feel lighter and brighter again. Sometimes depression comes after a loss or a difficult time, but other times it appears without any warning. A person may have a good job, supportive friends, and no obvious problems, yet still feel deeply depressed. That is because depression is not only about what happens around us. It is also connected to brain chemistry, hormones, and even genetics. Another difference between sadness and depression is duration. Sadness usually fades when life improves. Depression lingers. It can last for weeks, months, or even longer. And it doesn't simply go away when something good happens. You might celebrate a success, spend time with loved ones, or have a fun day, but the heavy fog remains, making life feel flat and exhausting. Depression also looks different for different people. Some people cry often and show their emotions openly. Others may seem calm or even cheerful on the outside, while quietly battling dark thoughts inside. Some people sleep too much, while others cannot sleep at all. Some lose weight because they have no appetite, while others gain weight because they eat for comfort. This variety makes depression harder to notice, both for the person experiencing it and for those around them. The key point is simple. Sadness is a normal human emotion, while depression is a medical condition. Understanding this difference is very important because depression often requires more than just waiting for it to pass. It may need therapy, support from loved ones, lifestyle changes, or sometimes medication. Sadness usually happens when something specific occurs, like losing a job, failing a test, or arguing with someone you care about. Over time, sadness becomes lighter. Depression, on the other hand, can stay even when nothing obvious has happened. It lingers and slowly affects almost every part of life, including work, school, relationships, and daily routines. If you notice that you have been feeling hopeless, empty, or without energy for more than 2 weeks, it is important to take it seriously. Depression is not a sign of weakness, laziness, or failure. It is a condition that needs attention and care. Understanding depression also helps us to be kinder to ourselves and others. When we realize that someone is struggling, we can offer support and understanding rather than judgment. Recovery is possible, and it often comes from a combination of professional help, supportive relationships, healthy routines, and self-care. In short, sadness is temporary, linked to specific events, and usually fades with time. Depression is long-lasting, can happen even without clear reasons, and affects both mind and body. Recognizing the difference is the first step to getting help, finding support, and beginning to heal. Awareness allows us to take back control of our feelings, make thoughtful choices, and slowly feel lighter and more hopeful again. If you notice signs of depression, it is important to pay attention. And here is something you should always remember. If you think you might be experiencing depression, you do not have to face it alone. Talking to someone you trust can help. A friend, a family member, or even a professional. Sometimes, just sharing your feelings with another person can lift some of the heavy weight you are carrying. For many people, speaking with a counselor or a doctor gives them the tools and support to feel better. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it shows strength and courage. It means you are taking care of your health, just like you would if you had a broken bone or the flu. Depression is real, but it is also treatable. People recover, and life can feel brighter again. If you are not experiencing depression yourself, but know someone who might be, the best thing you can do is listen without judging. Show kindness and understanding. Remind them that they are not alone. Even small acts of care can mean a lot for someone who is struggling. Now, let's connect this to the bigger picture. Frustration, stress, and depression may seem like 3 separate experiences, and in a way, they are. But if you look closer, they're linked, almost like steps on a slippery slope. If you are not careful, you can slide from one to the next without noticing. It often begins with frustration. Frustration happens when something small gets in your way. Maybe your internet suddenly stops working during an important online class. Maybe you spend hours working on a project, but nobody notices your effort. Or maybe you practice English for months, but during a conversation, you cannot find the right words. These moments are frustrating, and that is completely normal. Everyone experiences them. Frustration is your mind and body telling you, I want to move forward, but something is blocking me. These moments may feel small, but how you respond to them is important. If frustration is ignored or repeated too often, it can lead to stress, and if stress stays for a long time without relief, it may eventually contribute to depression. Understanding the connections between these emotions helps you respond better. Frustration is a signal. Stress is pressure. Depression is a weight. When you notice these feelings early, you can take control, pause, and make choices that prevent small challenges from turning into bigger struggles. Life will always have frustrations and pressures, but knowing how to recognize, name, and manage your emotions gives you power. You can take a deep breath, ask for help, adjust your expectations, and respond in ways that support your mental health and well-being. Awareness is the first step to feeling lighter, calmer, and more hopeful, no matter how heavy things may seem. Everyone feels frustration sometimes. It is a normal part of life. But if frustration happens again and again, and you do not handle it in a healthy way, it can pile up. That is when frustration can turn into stress. For example, imagine a student who fails a test. At first, they feel frustrated. I studied so hard, but I didn't get the grade I wanted. That reaction is normal. But then more thoughts start to appear. What if I fail the next test too? What if I never pass the subject? What will my parents say? What will happen to my future? Suddenly, the problem is no longer about just one test. It grows into constant stress about school, family, and the future. Instead of facing one small obstacle, the student now feels surrounded by many heavy pressures. This is why the slope is slippery. If the student does not manage the stress by asking for help, changing how they study, or giving themselves time to rest, the stress can slowly grow into depression. Day by day, the student may lose interest in studying. They may start thinking, "Why should I even try? Nothing works anyway." At this point, the stress has taken away their motivation, hope, and even joy. This shows how frustration, stress, and depression are connected. They are not completely separate. They're like steps in a chain. The good news is, just as you can slide down the slope, you can also stop yourself from going further if you pay attention early. Learning to notice frustration, manage stress, and ask for help before things get worse can make a big difference. When frustration is ignored, negative thoughts can begin to take control. What started as frustration over one small problem, like failing a test, can grow into a deep feeling of hopelessness. This pattern is not limited to school. It can appear in work, relationships, or personal goals too. Take work as an example. An employee might first feel frustrated because a project did not go as planned. They might feel annoyed when their ideas are ignored, when deadlines are tight, or when unexpected problems appear. If that frustration continues without relief, it can grow into stress, making the employee feel exhausted, overwhelmed, or constantly worried. If the stress lasts long enough, it may even lead to depression, affecting motivation, energy, and overall well-being. The key point is this: frustration is natural, stress is a warning sign, and depression is a serious signal that the mind and body need care. By paying attention early, noticing your feelings, taking breaks, asking for support, and adjusting expectations, you can prevent frustration from becoming stress and stress from becoming depression. Understanding this chain helps you take control of your emotions. Life will always bring challenges, but by responding thoughtfully instead of letting feelings pile up, you can protect your mental health, keep your energy, and stay hopeful. Awareness is the first step, and it can stop a small frustration from turning into a heavy, overwhelming weight. At work, an employee might feel frustrated if their ideas are ignored. At first, it may seem like just a small annoyance. But over time, that frustration can build into stress about going to work every day, feeling unappreciated, and not being heard. If this continues for months or years, it can turn into depression. The employee might lose motivation, start doubting their value, and even feel like life has no purpose. The same thing can happen in relationships. A person may feel frustrated because their partner doesn't listen. One time might not feel like a big deal, but if it happens repeatedly, that frustration can grow into stress about the relationship itself. If nothing changes, it can slowly turn into depression, where the person feels unloved, unwanted, or invisible. The key point is that these emotions are connected like links in a chain. Frustration is the first small warning signal. Stress is the louder alarm that comes next. And depression is what happens when those alarms are ignored for too long. This doesn't mean that every frustration leads to depression. Most of the time, we face small frustrations and then move on. But when we push them down, deny them, or pretend they don't matter, we give them space to grow stronger until they become much harder to handle. This is why awareness is so important. Think about your own life. Do you sometimes ignore small frustrations until they pile up into bigger problems? Do you tell yourself, "I'll deal with it later," only to find the pressure has doubled or tripled by the time you return to it? Almost all of us have done this at some point. It is human nature. But when we see the connection clearly, we realize something important. Handling frustration early is not just about fixing small problems. It is about protecting your mind and your life from stress and depression. When we notice frustration, we can pause, breathe, and choose a healthy response. We can ask for help, take a break, or try a different approach instead of letting negative feelings pile up. Frustration, stress, and depression are not enemies. They are signals. They tell us something is not working, something needs attention, and something matters to us. The difference is how we respond. If we respond with awareness and care, we can prevent small challenges from becoming overwhelming. If we ignore them, they grow silently until they control our emotions, energy, and hope. The message is clear. Noticing frustration early, managing stress, and seeking help when needed are powerful steps. These steps can stop a small problem from growing into a heavy burden. Life will always bring difficulties, but by paying attention to your feelings and responding thoughtfully, you can protect your mental health, keep your energy, and stay hopeful and resilient. Another way to think about frustration, stress, and depression is like a dripping tap. One drop of water is too small to worry about. It seems unimportant, but if the tap keeps dripping and nobody fixes it, the sink will eventually overflow. If the overflow continues, it can damage the whole kitchen. In this example, frustration is the first small drop, stress is the overflow, and depression is the damage that happens when nothing is done. The earlier you act, the easier it is to prevent serious problems. So, what do you do when frustration first appears? Do you notice it? Do you pause, breathe, and give yourself time to think? Do you adjust your expectations? Or do you push it aside, tell yourself it's nothing, and let it grow into something heavier? Being honest with yourself is very powerful. The slope is only slippery if you ignore the signs. If you catch frustration early, you can stop the slide before it even begins. This is where mindset and perspective become important. Frustration, stress, and depression can feel heavy, and sometimes it seems like they're stronger than us. But here is the encouraging truth. We are not powerless. We cannot always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. And that choice can make all the difference. If frustration is the spark and stress is the fire, then mindset is the tool we use to keep the flames under control before they spread. With the right mindset, we can stop small problems from turning into bigger struggles. One of the most important mindset shifts is moving from perfectionism to progress. Many people fall into the trap of perfectionism without realizing it. Perfectionism is the belief that everything must be perfect. People who think this way are often frustrated when life does not match their expectations. A small mistake, a late response, or a plan that doesn't go exactly as imagined can feel like a disaster. The problem with perfectionism is that it sets you up for frustration. Life is never perfect. Mistakes happen. Plans change. Things go wrong. If you expect perfection, you will always feel frustrated. But if you focus on progress instead of perfection, you give yourself room to grow. You can learn from mistakes, adjust your approach, and move forward, even when things aren't perfect. Frustration, stress, and depression are natural parts of life, but they don't have to control us. By noticing small frustrations, managing stress, asking for help when needed, and keeping a healthy mindset, we can prevent problems from piling up. We can take control of our emotions and choose how we respond. Life will still bring challenges, but with awareness and care, those challenges become manageable and we stay resilient and hopeful. Perfectionism is the belief that everything must be flawless. No mistakes, no failures, everything exactly right all the time. At first, this sounds like a good goal, but in real life, it often causes frustration. Life is never perfect. Things go wrong. Delays happen. Mistakes are part of every journey. When perfectionists face these normal problems, they don't just see them as small setbacks. They see them as proof that they are not good enough. This way of thinking quickly leads to stress, self-doubt, and even hopelessness. Progress is very different from perfection. Progress is not about being perfect today. It is about moving forward, even with small steps. It is asking, am I a little better than I was yesterday, instead of, am I perfect today? This small shift in thinking can change everything. Take learning English as an example. If your goal is to speak perfectly without mistakes, you will feel frustrated quickly. You may even stop speaking because you're afraid of getting something wrong. But if your goal is progress, improving step by step, then every conversation becomes a small victory. Mistakes stop feeling like failures and instead become proof that you are trying, and trying is how we grow. Another key part of taking control is consistency. Many people expect big results very quickly. They want to go to the gym once and see big muscles, or practice English for 1 week and suddenly speak fluently. When results don't appear right away, frustration grows. The truth is, real change doesn't come from one big effort. It comes from small actions repeated again and again. Think of a drop of water falling on a stone. One drop does nothing, but drop after drop, day after day, the stone slowly changes shape. That is the power of consistency. The same is true in life. If you read just 1 page of a book each day, practice one small skill, or take one small positive step, over time it will add up to real progress. Consistency works because it creates momentum. Each small success gives you energy to keep going. Each small effort builds confidence. Frustration decreases when you focus on progress instead of perfection, and stress becomes easier to manage because you know you are moving forward step by step. When frustration or stress appears, remember that perfection is not the goal. The goal is to keep going, keep learning, and keep improving. By focusing on progress and staying consistent, you take control of your feelings and actions. You stop letting frustration grow into stress and stress from building into depression. Small steps, repeated daily, can create big changes over time. That is how we turn challenges into growth, mistakes into lessons, and effort into achievement. If you read 1 page of an English book every day, write 2 or 3 sentences in a journal each night, or practice speaking for 10 minutes regularly, you might not notice results immediately. But after weeks and months, you will be surprised at how much you have improved. Small steps, repeated consistently, create real progress over time. Another key part of taking control is setting realistic goals. Unrealistic goals are like setting yourself up to fail even before you start. They create unnecessary pressure and almost guarantee frustration. Realistic goals, on the other hand, give you something achievable, step by step. For example, instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English in 1 month, you could say, I want to learn 10 new words this week and use them in conversation. That is realistic and doable. Every small goal you reach builds confidence for the next one. Unrealistic goals often lead to disappointment. For instance, if you promise, I'll study English for 5 hours every day, but manage only 30 minutes, you might feel like a failure. But 30 minutes is still progress. A more realistic goal would be, I'll study 30 minutes each day. Anything extra becomes a bonus. When your goals fit your life and energy, you give yourself more chances to succeed. Success builds confidence, and confidence helps reduce stress. Taking control also means developing the right mindset. Mindset doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. Positive thinking is not about avoiding reality. It is about choosing a healthier way to respond. For example, if you fail a test, perfectionism says, "I'm stupid. I'll never succeed." Progress thinking says, "I didn't do well this time, but I can try a new method and improve." One mindset closes doors, the other opens them. Knowing when to rest is also important. We live in a world that glorifies constant action, working late, studying nonstop, always pushing. But rest is not laziness. Rest is part of progress. Just like muscles need recovery after exercise, your mind and body need time to recharge. Without rest, frustration grows, stress increases, and mistakes feel bigger than they really are. Taking breaks helps you come back stronger, more focused, and more capable of handling challenges. So, taking control of frustration, stress, and depression involves small, consistent steps, realistic goals, the right mindset, and enough rest. Each piece works together to prevent small problems from turning into bigger struggles. When you notice frustration early, manage stress with care, and prioritize your well-being, you regain control over your life. Life may still have challenges, but you become resilient and capable, ready to face them without being overwhelmed. The power of small steps, consistent effort, realistic goals, and proper rest shows that you don't need to solve everything at once. You just need to start today, keep going, and believe that progress is stronger than perfection. Just like muscles grow stronger when they rest and recover, our minds also need breaks to process and heal. Giving yourself permission to pause is not weakness. It is wisdom. Ask yourself, what is my mindset right now? Do I demand perfection in everything I do? Do I see mistakes as proof that I've failed, or as proof that I am learning? Am I setting goals I can actually reach, or goals that just create stress? Most importantly, am I choosing small steps of progress over the impossible dream of perfection? You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you see it. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you face begin to feel different. That is the power of mindset, practical tools, and everyday habits. When we talk about frustration, stress, and depression, it might seem like the solutions must be big or complicated. But often, small habits make the biggest difference. These habits are like tools you can carry in your pocket. You cannot remove every problem from life, but with the right tools, you can respond in healthier, calmer ways. The good news is that these tools are available to everyone, no matter your age, background, or situation. Tool 1: Breathing. One of the most powerful tools is something we do every day: breathing. It may sound simple, but controlling your breath can calm both your body and mind in just a few moments. When we are stressed, our breathing becomes fast and shallow. This tricks the body into thinking we are in danger, which only adds more stress. But if we slow down and take deep, controlled breaths, we tell the brain, "It's okay. I am safe." Here's a simple technique. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, then exhale for 4 seconds. Doing this helps reduce tension quickly. You can do it anywhere, at school, at work, or even while standing in line. Tool 2: Journaling. Another helpful tool is journaling. Writing down your thoughts allows you to organize your mind, release emotions, and reflect on what is really happening. Sometimes, just putting your feelings on paper can make them feel smaller and easier to handle. Journaling helps you notice patterns in your frustration or stress, giving you a better chance to respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. Both breathing and journaling are small actions, but they build strong habits over time. When used regularly, they give you more control over your emotions. You start noticing frustration early, managing stress before it grows, and preventing heavier feelings from taking over. The key is to practice consistently. Just like learning a language or building a skill, small tools used every day lead to big changes in life. You don't need huge actions to change how you feel. You just need to start with what is simple, practical, and realistic. By using these tools, paying attention to your mindset, and giving yourself permission to rest, you can handle the small drops of frustration before they turn into stress or depression. Life may not be perfect, but you can face it with strength, clarity, and calm. Writing down your thoughts might sound old-fashioned, but it can help more than you think. Life can feel overwhelming, and sometimes our mind feels like a messy room. Journaling is like cleaning that room. When you put your thoughts on paper, they become organized. You may see that what felt huge is actually small, or notice patterns like always feeling stressed at a certain time of day. Some people keep a gratitude journal, writing 3 things they are thankful for each evening. This simple habit helps shift your focus from what's missing to what's good in your life. Over time, it trains your brain to notice the positive, even during tough times. Exercise is another tool that is often overlooked. Many people think exercise is just for losing weight or building muscles. But moving your body is one of the strongest ways to lift your mood naturally. Running, dancing, swimming, or even just walking triggers your brain to release chemicals that reduce stress and make you feel better. Exercise is like pressing a reset button for your mind. You don't need a gym or special equipment. Even a short 20-minute walk outside can clear your head and give you fresh energy. Talking to someone you trust is also very important. When we feel stressed or sad, it's easy to hide and stay silent. But sharing your feelings with a friend, family member, or mentor can help you feel lighter. Talking is like building a bridge to someone else. Simply saying your worries out loud can make them smaller. Sometimes, another person's perspective helps you see solutions you didn't notice before. Routines also help your emotions. Life is unpredictable, and having routines gives you stability. Something as simple as waking up at the same time every day, drinking a glass of water in the morning, or reading a few pages before bed can anchor your day and make life feel more manageable. Small, consistent habits like these make a big difference over time. All of these tools, breathing, journaling, exercise, talking, and routines, are practical ways to take control of your emotions. You don't need huge actions to feel better. Small, simple habits, done consistently, can reduce frustration, manage stress, and prevent depression from growing. They help you notice problems early and respond in healthy ways before they become overwhelming. The key is to start with what is simple and realistic. You don't have to fix everything at once. Even a few minutes of journaling, a short walk, or talking to someone you trust can begin to make life feel lighter. Step by step, you build the habits that strengthen your mind and body. You begin to feel more in control, calmer, and more hopeful. Remember, life will never be perfect. Frustration, stress, and sadness are part of being human. But by using simple tools, building small habits, and focusing on progress rather than perfection, you can handle life's challenges more easily. You don't need to wait for a big solution. The small, consistent actions you take today can make tomorrow feel brighter.